Welcome to the digital version of the ZMS Netbook Orientation Meeting for Parents. I appreciate that you've taken the time to learn more about our newest instructional model, and I hope you find this informative and meaningful. The agenda for this presentation includes a discussion about the program's purpose, examples of the impact of netbooks on individual subject areas, what parents can expect to see, how the school is approaching the topic of student safety, how students should care for their machines, and warranty and financial information. Many people believe that our purpose in introducing netbooks into the school environment is an attempt to focus on technology and to have our students learn as much about technology as possible. While we freely acknowledge that this would be an advantageous byproduct, it is not our goal. The truth of the matter is that ZMS educators began this movement several years ago by investigating best instructional practices and asking ourselves how best to achieve them. One of our most valuable resources was the book Best Practice: Today's Standards for Teaching and Learning in America's Schools. The author's recommendations call for instruction that is experiential and authentic and student-centered, and they encourage a learning experience that calls for students to be reflective, expressive, and collaborative. To provide some background, this initiative was undertaken a number of years ago. These efforts produced a pilot laptop program in the 2008-2009 school year in which 75 sixth grade students purchased laptops and leased them back to the school so that we could legally provide software to those machines. The goals of that pilot were to establish a high level of student engagement, to focus on critical thinking skills and problem solving, and for students to acquire 21st century skills as a secondary outcome resulting from their core curricular work. After our successful pilot year, ZCS requested that the state recognize computers as an instructional delivery tool, and as a result, the state of Indiana allowed schools to issue and fund computers as they've done textbooks in the past. This opened the door to our current netbook program for all students in grades 6 through 8. Let's turn our attention for a moment to the history of technology in the classroom. Let's face it, the classroom in this picture is not unlike a number of classrooms today in terms of technology. The classroom that I left in 1996 to come to Zionsville did not have a computer in it. None of the teachers in that school had email or any access to the internet. When teachers did get computers in their individual classrooms, it had a major impact. Having the ability to save documents and refine them over time was a significant leap over the typewriter and ditto days. Internet access also offered teachers better materials to work with and offered them the ability to share their work with colleagues and thus improved collaboration among teaching staffs. Still, bringing the teacher computer into the classroom did not directly change the students' access to materials or tools. When schools created computer labs for student use, teachers had the ability to bring their classes to the labs for an hour for word processing or online research. While this practice did give students access to information and tools, the time frame available to students and teachers significantly limited what they were able to produce there. When the bell rang, the research or the writing ended, whether the students were truly done or not. In short, the computer lab was a much less teacher-centric environment, but availability and access were still significant problems. The next era that our schools entered was that of the LCD projector and interactive whiteboards. This influx of technology made the internet and any other teacher-prepared documents shareable in the classroom. Still, the interactivity of these tools was limited to one person, and the classroom remained teacher-centric. 2 years ago, when our school began using Angel, it allowed us to extend the classroom beyond the school day and beyond the school walls. Moreover, it was an omnidirectional exchange of documents, thoughts, tools, etc. Students could share materials with one another and the teacher could create and share materials with students. The only problem was the students only had access to Angel when they were at home or in a computer lab. With the one-to-one netbook program, students finally have the access to the tools and limitless information 24 hours a day. The netbooks are production tools, the likes of which students have never had access to before. The traditional student role of being a passive receiver of information has changed dramatically to one in which students actively investigate, analyze, apply, and produce. The more common classroom atmosphere is more of a workshop as opposed to the more traditional lecture orientation. Let's look at how having a netbook in the hands of each child changes instruction and learning in various curricular areas. We begin with writing, which happens to be the place where we have impacted student production the most. We've found that students have improved their writing in both quantity and quality. Students report to us that keyboarding is significantly easier for them than writing by hand. As a result, the physical action required to write is no longer an impediment. Relatedly, students are more willing to edit their work now that writing by hand is no longer part of that process. Suggestions by teachers and peer editors are no longer ignored because expounding on an idea or shifting a paragraph does not require rewriting the whole piece. Another positive impact that the netbooks have had on writing is the ability for our students to do extensive research at home and at school. Internet access offers students writing and tools like dictionaries, thesauruses, in addition to resources to research topics thoroughly. Thirdly, our one-to-one program aids classroom teachers in providing an audience for student writing. In the traditional classroom, the teacher tended to be the only audience for the student. Our students are now able to share their thoughts on countless items through their own classroom networks or beyond the classroom through blogs and wikis. Many of our students have taken their blogs to great heights. Abby is one of those students. She's an award-winning edublogger. Her site has had nearly 1,000 visits since last spring, and she serves as an official edublog mentor to student bloggers across the world. Lauren has had similar exposure, and like Abby, she frequently enters edublogger challenges, networking with peers across the world. Last year, Lauren sent a message to her 6th grade teacher saying, "I just want to share with you how many dots my cluster maps is getting. Every time I look at it, I think of how you taught us how to be better digital citizens and to connect with our audience in a safe and beneficial way." Shifting gears to science class, our students benefit from technology infusion in this subject area as well. Our lab experiences frequently use peripherals that plug directly into our netbooks. Students use digital images to document their lab experiences and include them in their lab write-ups. Another major improvement is in a student's ability to collaborate with peers. Using Google Docs and other similar tools, students are able to edit the same document simultaneously and from different locations. Naturally, this is a much better scenario than the one that previously existed, in which students had to meet in the evening at one of the students' houses, or even worse, one member did all of the work. These collaborative documents not only allow multiple editors, but each version of the document is saved, and members can choose to go back to a previous version if the changes were not desirable. Teachers can also see which group members made additions and changes. The possibilities in social studies and foreign language class are endless. Maps are abundant and can be tailor-made. Online tools bring an authenticity and relevance into the classroom that simply did not exist when the textbook was the only source of information. For example, as a former German teacher, my textbooks would always have a unit on travel through the country. The book would offer a static chart showing when trains went from one city to another. Now students can go to the Deutsche Bundesbahn site and select the cities, choose the time of departure and arrival, see the price, find out how many times they would have to stop and change trains, etc. By adding Google Earth to the mix, students can see how far the trip from Munich, for example, to Cologne is, and just what they would see when they got there. Now, telling students that the Rhine is a busy waterway is different than showing them how many barges were on the water on a particular day. Social studies students can also learn to follow current events through an RSS feeder. Angel can be set up as an RSS feeder, and many of our students also use Google Reader. Both of these tools allow students to follow news in areas of their individual interest. Math is an area that probably is the least changed by our one-to-one program. Why? Because the best way for students to work a math problem is with pencil and paper. It's important that we let you know that we choose the best method for students to learn material, not the most high-tech. When that involves pencil and paper, then that's exactly what we use. Having said that, teachers are using screencasts to share examples of how to work problems for students. This practice gives additional resources to students who get home and need assistance to finish their homework or when they're studying for an upcoming test. Let's take a look at an example.
You may not know this, but the mean distance from Earth to Mars is approximately 2 3/10 times 10 to the 8th power kilometers. And the reason scientists deal with exponents is because otherwise they would be writing quite a whopper of a number. This is the same as saying I'm going to take 2.3 and I'm going to do 2 3/7 and I'm going to decimal dance that thing 8 times, multiplying by 10 to the 8. And so that is saying, here's my decimal point, and I am going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and put it right there. Now we know what we use to fill these in.
So it's easy to see why we say that having a netbook allows you to take your teacher home with you. ZMS students also use their netbooks in their fine arts classes. Our art students maintain their own digital portfolios of their work. Not only does that make them available to family members and friends, it also allows them to see their improvement over their middle school years. Our music classes use smart music and Audacity to improve students' experience. Teachers used to assign an arbitrary amount of time to practice each week. They can instead now ask students to practice until they're happy with their performance and then turn in the recording of that performance to their teacher to be assessed. One final point for fine arts is the number of resources available online of artists and their work, something that allows teachers to show and make available to students or for students to access in their own research. It's easy to see then, as we return to this slide from earlier, that the one-to-one program truly does enable us to provide instruction that is experiential, authentic, and student-centered, and that allows students to be reflective, expressive, and collaborative. The staff at ZMS believes that it is our responsibility to teach our students how to safely live in a digital world. We instruct our students how to be a good digital citizen, not only in the manner in which they should conduct themselves when interacting with peers online, but also how to cite sources, respect copyright law, etc. Parents will notice that the school uses an extensive content filter and that the filter works regardless which network a student is using. We realize that there are a number of limitations that exist because of the fact that students do not have administrative rights to their computers. The biggest of those, by the way, is the inability to add a printer at home. But the safety of students is our primary concern. Our ZMS students will have the same machine each year. The machines have a 3-year warranty with accident protection, though the accident protection allows for 2 incidents. Beyond that, students' families would be responsible for any necessary repairs. Speaking of responsibility, students are required to keep their netbooks in their case at all times, and they're strongly encouraged not to store them in automobiles because of extreme temperatures and to avoid theft. Students are also required to bring their computers every day and should have them fully charged when they arrive. Of course, students are required to abide by the school's acceptable use agreement regardless where they're using this equipment. Finally, what should parents expect to see at home? Certainly, there will be less paper going to and from school. Through the use of Angel, however, parents should have more access to the classroom materials than ever before. Parents will also note that school looks different than it did when we were students. This can lead to some discomfort. By and large, Zionsville parents were good at the school game, and we feel that it's easier to help when it looks like it used to. I suggest using the over-the-shoulder method and to continue being plugged into school affairs, albeit with your child at the keyboard. Parents should see more project-oriented work. Unlike in the past, much of the project work will be done at school where we now have the tools to complete it, and parents won't have to scramble to get kids together when it does require work beyond the school day. Finally, parents will find as little or as much as they look for. More information about what is going on at school is available than ever before, but it does require parents to look for it, and we encourage you to do just that. Thank you for watching this video, especially making all the way through. I hope you found it to be informative and useful, and we hope that you find this one-to-one program to be as impactful as we think it is.